Hi everyone, and welcome to another tutorial. So in this one we're going to talk about how to lay out your drawing so that it's in proportion, and um, this is a good alternative to the grid method. I know lots of people use the grid method and are happy with the grid method, and if that works for you then that's great. I don't like the extra lines all over the page that the grid method makes, so I prefer this method. So two things. Number one, I am doing this with a 6B pencil purely so it shows up on camera. I would advise that you do this with the lightest pencil that you have because you want to rub out most of the lines afterwards. So I'm going to start with my reference image and I am going to draw a line, vertical line. Doesn't matter where it is. I have decided to go through the parting of the hair, through the middle of the nose and through the middle of the mouth. And then we need a horizontal line. Again, doesn't matter where you go. And I am going to go through the middle of her eyes, like so. Okay, so now we need to transfer that onto our drawing paper. So first, we need to decide where that middle point is going to be, where the two cross. So I'm going to say that is there. So now we need to go, you need to make sure that your reference image, when you cut it out, that these are square. So what I tend to do is print out my reference image on an A4 piece of paper so it looks like that, and then I will use my ruler and a knife and cut down where the colour ends, because that's square out of the printer. So that's definitely square. So if you use a knife and or better yet, a guillotine, but if you haven't got one, a knife and a straight edge, and just cut down the end of the colour, and then you'll have a square reference image. And then I mount that on another piece of drawing paper so that it sits higher than my actual drawing paper, so that then when we come on here, you can hold that like that with the ruler, and then that slides around underneath it because this is higher than that. So now we need to join. We've got our vertical line. We need to join up through our first bearing point, which is that dot in the middle. So again, making sure that our drawing paper is square to our reference image. You need to make sure that that is square, so it's not cocked off like that. It needs to be absolutely square through that point on our drawing paper. So this is what you want to do with your lightest pencil. Put this line on. Like I say, I'm just doing it dark so that you can see it. I'll just make sure that point's dark so we can see it. Right, now we need to put the horizontal line on. So same thing, we make sure that our reference image is square to our drawing paper, and then we take our straight edge and we go along that horizontal line on our reference image. Hold that in place with that hand, and then you can move this. You can move the drawing paper with this hand, and again through that middle point. There we go. Again, making sure that that's square, and so we'll draw our horizontal line on. So now we have that in the same proportion on our drawing paper. So now, the whole point in this is to find points. So there, where her chin goes through that horizontal line, we will find that point. So there's two ways to do this. You can measure it. So if we measure that from that point to that point, it's just over 4 centimeters. So if you wanted your image to be, your drawing to be double the size of this, you could say, okay, if I measure 8 centimeters down and mark that, that will make my drawing double the size. I'm just going to guesstimate. I'm just going to say it's there. So that's that point there. So now we've got 2 points. Again, I wouldn't advise circling and doing it dark. It's just so you can see it. So if we want to find, say, we want to find that side of her eye. So it's already on the horizontal line. So if we want to find that point, all we do is we line up through the bottom bearing point to the part of the eye that we want to find that's already on this horizontal line. We'll hold that in place with that hand, and then we can move our drawing paper with this hand, line it up with the bottom bearing point, making sure that, again, that's square. And then, so that's going through the bottom bearing point to this point on the horizontal line where we're trying to find the point of our eye. And then it's square to our drawing paper. It's going through our bottom bearing point on our drawing paper. So on the horizontal line, make a mark. And that's part of her eye. So we'll just get a rough shape in, just so we know where that is, what it is. Okay, so if we want to find the other side of the eye, we do exactly the same thing. Through the bottom bearing point, up to that point on the horizontal line, hold that still, make sure our paper's square, slide it over to the bottom bearing point, mark, and that's the other side of her eye. Okay, so now if we keep on going, we can find the inner part of her eye there. I'm going to try and find the inner part there. So again, we'll line it up through the bottom bearing point to that point on the horizontal line where we're going to find. Hold it steady. Again, move our drawing paper, making sure that it's square to our reference image, through the bottom bearing point, and there we go. So that is the inside of her eye. That's coming down that way. So now if we carry on and find the outer part, the inner part of her hair, which is there. So again, it's on the horizontal line, so we only need to use one bearing point, which is the bottom bearing point, and we will go through the bottom bearing point on our reference image up to the point on the horizontal line we're trying to find. Hold that steady, move our drawing paper across so it lines up with that bottom bearing point. Make sure it's square. So we have bottom bearing point, point we're trying to find, bottom bearing point, point we're trying to find. So that is now that part of the hair, which is going down that way. Maybe that way. So now we can find the inner part of our eye there, where it crosses through the horizontal line. And you guessed it, through the bottom bearing point, up to the point we're trying to find on the horizontal line. Hold that steady, square the reference image to our drawing paper, through the bottom bearing point, up to where we're trying to find. And so that is that point there. That's going that way. So, as you can see, we're starting to find some bits, some points on the eye. So now, if we move to the other side, again, we will find that point. So it's the side of the iris. And we'll go exactly the same thing through the bottom point, up to the point we're trying to find on the horizontal. Hold that steady. Through the bottom bearing point on our drawing paper, up to where we're trying to find on the horizontal line, and there it is. And that is the side of the iris. So now, if we go for the other side of the iris, it's just where the hair meets, which is there. So again, because it's already on the horizontal line, we can just go through the bottom bearing point, up to where we're trying to find. Hold that steady, square the paper. You know the drill. I hope you know the drill by now. Through that bearing point. And there we go. So that is the other side of the iris, and it's also where the hair is coming down. So we can just mark those like that. Okay, so now let's find this point here, the outer part of her hair. So it can get a bit tricky when you go into the outer extremities. And we do the same again, we go through the bearing point, up to where we're trying to find, and then through the bearing point. This is where it gets a bit tricky, because you need to still make sure your picture's square, but your drawing paper is square to your reference image, but we've only got that much to work with. So it does get a bit tricky. Sometimes you have to move it around and try going on this side of the paper, and there is always a way, it's just finding different way. So instead of being able to do it like that, I might have gone this side through the bearing point like that to where we're trying to find, but then use the back side of the ruler. And that would have been worse, because there's hardly any there now. But we could have also done that across the top. Lined up that way. So you can always find a way to do it. It's just sometimes a bit tricky. So that is her hair coming down there. And her hair coming down there. That's the side of the iris. So let's find this point where the eyelid comes down and crosses the horizontal line. So you know what I'm doing now. Through the bottom bearing point, up to the horizontal line where we're trying to find a point. Through the bottom bearing point on our drawing paper, making sure our paper is square to our reference image. Up to the line, there's our point. And it's this bit coming down there, which coming down at that sort of angle. There. So that's basically what you do. and you keep working through until you've got all of the points that you can get on your horizontal line done. So let's find the outer part of her hair there. Again, this is going to the outer part of the image, so it can be tricky. It's especially helpful to have a longer straight edge. My ruler is 50 centimeters. You can do it with a 30 centimeter ruler, but it's more awkward. If your ruler isn't long enough, then you have to draw a line on your page, and then draw another line up further up once you've moved your ruler up, and it's just, yeah, it's annoying. So if you've got a longer straight edge, it's better. Anyway, so that is that part of the hair coming down there. So now let's find here. Let's find where her lip crosses the vertical line. So obviously we can't use the bottom bearing point to do that. So we're going to use another bearing point, and we're going to use this one on the far left as a bearing point. So let me show you what I mean. So instead of going through the bottom bearing point, we're going to go through the side bearing point that we've just created here. So we're going to line it up there, and then we're going to line it up where we want to find on the vertical line now, which is the top of the lips. And then we move it around to the side of our paper. Just line that back up so it moved. And we move the paper down, keeping it square until we come through the side bearing point. And then we come down to the vertical line, and that's the point we're trying to find right there. Help if you can see. Let me show you that again. So we're going through that point, up to the mouth. We're going to line it up with the bearing point there, making sure that it's square to our reference image. Just fiddle with it sometimes so that you get it just right. And then come down to our line, make a mark. And there we go. So now we know that that point is that point on her lips. So now we can find the outer part of her lips there. So we are looking here at the outer part of her lips. So this is where it gets interesting, because it's not on a line. So it's not on the vertical line, and it's not on the horizontal line. It's a place in space, like over here somewhere. So to find this, we need to use two bearing points. All we've done so far is use one bearing point, whether it's been the bottom bearing point, or we've just used a side bearing point, but we've still used one bearing point to find whatever point we're looking for. Because this one is out in space and it's not on a line, we need to use two bearing points. So let me show you what I mean. First off, we will do the bottom bearing point. So we're going through the bearing point to the point we're trying to find in space, which is there. Line those up. And then holding that steady, square the paper through the bottom bearing point. So we need to make a line somewhere around there. So now we know that this point is on this line somewhere, but we don't know where on this line this point is. So now we need to use the second bearing point, which is going to be this one up here, to work out where on this line this point needs to go. So now we'll take it up to the side and we go through the side bearing point. We take it through that point that we're trying to find in space. Hold that steady. Square up your paper. Sometimes it moves. You just have to play around with it. So square up your paper through the bearing point, which is the side one. So that point is there. So we know that that point is there. So ellipse will come in up like that. We've got our point here. We're going up, going down, something like that. So if you wanted to now, you could now find that point where they go back down. Again, it's a point in space, so you'd need that reference point and that reference point to find that bit. But that is how you can find any point anywhere on here. If you wanted to find that point there, that's just in the middle of nowhere, that one there, let's find that one there. Through the bottom bearing point, up to the point we're trying to find. Just completely random point. And then we're going to go through the bottom bearing point, making sure reference image is square. If it moves, move it back. So we've got the bottom bearing point, that point there, bottom bearing point. So we're going to put a line up there. And now we're going to use the side one. So we're going to go through the side point up to that point in random space. Hold that steady. Square your paper. To the bearing point. And then we've got bearing point, point we're trying to find, bearing point, point we're trying to find. And there it is. Complete random bit in the middle of nowhere. So you can use this method to the extreme and find that point, 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 that point. You know, you can literally make yourself a dot to dot around her eyelashes, eyebrows on here. So then you just join up the dot to dots. So you can make it as easy as you want to. Or if you're a little bit more advanced and you've got a little bit more freehand skills, then maybe you can just find that point there and that point there, and you can just join them up without all the dots. So this is a really, really, really good way of enlarging an image accurately in proportion every single time. As long as you keep your edges square and you square them up to your drawing paper, it will be 100% accurate every single time. So it is a fantastic way of laying out a drawing, and then once you've got all of your main parts laid out, because you've done it with your lightest pencil, you can then come in and rub out your horizontal line and rub out your vertical line, and then you're just left with your drawing. So instead of having to rub out a whole grid, you've just got 2 lines that you need to rub out. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that helps. I personally think this is a much more enjoyable way of laying out a drawing than the grid method, but as I say, each to their own. Some people enjoy the grid method, and if it works for you, then great. So that's about it for me. I think I will be back soon with another tutorial. So yeah, any questions or comments, post below, and make sure you subscribe, and I will see you soon. Thanks everyone.